Hey everyone, welcome back to PipeCast. This is the next installment of our newest segment, First Impression, Last Review. I'm Patrick.
I'm Zach, and today we're going to be discussing Regents Flake by GLPs. Regents Flake is an Oriental Ford, Virginia, bright and red, with a touch of Perique blend. It's a broken flake. Well, you know what? We're just going to look at it real quick, and then we can discuss in detail. Here we have the Regent Flake, composed primarily of a base of Izmir tobacco. I'm not sure if you can see the Izmir right here. Izmir is characteristically similar in color tones to the Red Virginia, and even not quite as much, but pretty similar to the Bright Virginia. And then, of course, it has a touch of Perique to kind of round everything out. You can see in here the darker tones of Izmir and Red Virginia. Now, it's probably going to be hard to distinguish the two, but they're in there and you can see. And some of these other darker patches, probably right here. The light's a little funny, so right there, that could be touches of Perique. And of course, you can see the Bright Virginia layered in there with the red and the Izmir.
All right, well, after looking at that, it was a very nice flake. I mean, I would almost call it like a broken flake, kind of.
Well, I think it is just broken flake, isn't
Okay.
it?
I think they call it a flake, but it's just like with Quiet Nights, it's not really a flake. I mean, it's sort of tumbled, I guess. After it's been cut, it's sort of tumbled up. But, so I'm the first impressor, I guess. Smoking in the clay, not for any other reason other than I like the clay sometimes.
Okay.
But this is my first Oriental focused blend. And I'll have to say, I'm getting similar vibes to Goblin Mixture in a way. And I thought that was going to happen after I smoked Goblin Mixture because I was like, I got some Orientals on deck that I want to try, Oriental Forward blends. And I was like, this one, Goblin Mixture, is the closest, I guess, that I've had to Oriental Forward. Mm-hmm. It had a little bit of Latakia, but I didn't really pick up on the Latakia that much. This is very similar, very bright. Very bright. Let me give it a little bit more light real quick. It packs real well. I mean, I just sort of, there was no method to it. I just stuffed it in here. Like I didn't do anything like that. Very, very bright, very, almost, I'm not getting any sweetness, a little bit of spice. Yeah, it's good. I can't really tell you much about it. I think I would prefer this over Goblin Mixture.
You think that the Latakia throws off the rest of the flavors?
I think it's the proportions probably of the Virginias.
Okay.
That I think is the difference maker. This one feels, in Goblin Mixture, I got that Virginia toastiness underneath. I'm not getting it as much in this one, even though there's probably more Virginia. Probably, I don't know, because if there's not Latakia in here, then the percentages are going to change. Probably there's more Oriental in this than there was in Goblin Mixture.
Okay.
But I'm not getting the toast underneath. No, yeah, on my first impression, which I'm only a little bit through. Granted, it's a really small bowl, but this first half of the bowl, it's very, very bright, very, I don't know. Part of me thinks that, I don't know. I probably need to let you, now you've had this before, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I smoked this a lot. So If you've touched with, say, Blairgowrie, which is another peas blend under the Drucker and Sons brand, or you've touched on Goblin Mixture or other Scottish tradition blends, this Regent's Flake and Temple Bar, which it's kind of its sister companion blend, and I'll get into that in a second. This would be the next jumping off point if you really, really like Scottish blends. So this is sort of taking the Scottish blend idea and pushing it all the way to its final conclusion, which is just removing all the Latakia. And I think that in this case, Pease actually added a touch of Perique. The Perique really isn't there, in my opinion. I can't really, there's not really pepperiness to the retrohale. You might get it here or there. It might even be advantageous to people who like Perique to add some Perique to this blend to give it a little bit more peppery. But I think the tin description does really explain about everything you need. With the Bright Virginia and the Orientals, you're going to get a tart, almost fall apple cider kind of thing going on. It tastes like Granny Smith apples to me. So it pushes beyond grassy into the citrusy realm, but then it has this weird appley finish, and that might actually be because, in my opinion, it might be that faint, almost non-existent Perique in there. For some reason, that is the only conclusion I can come up with. Izmir is wonderful. The whole thing's very tart, light, sweet. It's a fall blend. I smoke it predominantly in the fall. Temple Bar, like I said, is like what I would consider a sister blend. It's the same components, except in the case of Regents, it goes through the pressing phase and then is cut out into flakes. Temple Bar's plug. I'm not, like I think I've said before, I'm not the biggest fan of plug in the world because I just don't really like working through everything with it. I don't want to bring some jackknife with me and cut it up, or I don't want to pre-slice it. But I will say this, I do think that they age better. So if you're a big age junkie where you want to buy a blend, you want to put it on a shelf for X amount of time, I think Temple Bar might be the way to go if you don't mind the process of cutting up and blending. I just think that, from what I gather and what I've experienced, like Triple P and Temple Bar, they do tend to age a little bit more because they're pressed. So everything's going to meld together, I think, a little bit more consistently throughout the block as opposed through the flake. It's like I said, it's one of the better Oriental forward blends. Pease never really drops the ball. His moisture content with all his blends, specifically Cornell and Dill blends, if they're moist, they're slightly above moist, just a touch above a touch above perfect is what I mean to say. They usually come out of the tin perfect. I don't ever recommend any Cornell and Dill blends not go from the tin to the jar. Galwith, you can leave it in the tin for a long period of time, but with the Cornell and Dill, you've got maybe a week and a half before things really start drying out, especially if they're not in an ideal environment. So I recommend just throwing it right into a jar most of the time you can. Even if it is a little bit moist, you can throw it on a paper towel for probably 2 to 5 minutes and it'd be perfect. Yeah. But this has been jarred by Patrick. Straight out of the jar, goes right into my pipe. There's not much preparation. And the way that this is broken, the flakes actually come in almost perfectly like they needed to be folded. So if you could just break off the amount that goes right into your bowl and push it right in, you really don't have to do any type of fold or stuff. It's kind of a no fuss, no muss blend. Yeah. And the flakes are really agreeable.
It's almost like the best of both worlds of just a pure flake and a ribbon cut.
They are messier than a pure flake, though.
Yeah, they're definitely messier, but it's almost, like I said, you're not going to be able to fold and stuff exactly like you would with a flake, but you can almost replicate it in a way, but it's almost just as easy, if not easier, to pack than ribbon cut, really. Because it, like he said, you just grab it and you just stuff it in there, and it's not going everywhere. It's still stuck together enough to where, you got something hanging off, it's not going to fall. You just,
Right.
tuck it in there and get it in the pipe. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of those things where, if you're curious about room note and stuff, I mean, it's lighter than a Latakia blend for sure. And the whole thing tastes tart with a touch of sweetness, but nothing overpoweringly sweet. So if you don't want something with a really saccharine kind of aftertaste, this isn't going to have that. It's going to taste more like an apple in your mouth if on the sweet side, like a Granny Smith. I don't really think there's going to be much more to say about that.
No, I just sort of to wrap this up a little bit, I like the flavor profile a lot. So I might be more into the Scottish blends than I thought, based on that Goblin Mixture review.
Well, it's like with anything, Latakia is overpowering. Even a dab of Latakia, even if you were at the low end, like 5%, 10% of the blend is Latakia. I mean, I usually can taste it. You can suss it out pretty quickly. But, in the case of most Scottish blends, it's so light that it gives a little bit more entry. And then in the case of an Oriental, a true Oriental for Oriental blend, like Regents Flake, you don't even have to worry with the Latakia overpowering anything. You can actually sort of investigate the Oriental and the Virginia. I think the Perique probably functions as a bridger between the two, maybe.
Helps fill it out.
Helps fill it out.
Yeah.
The smoke's full. It's really good. So, yeah, I recommend this one. I smoke it every fall, so I hope I would.
Yeah. And if Oriental, Scottish type of blends are your thing, be on the lookout. I believe we're planning on doing like a shootout, a Pease shootout between this, Cairo, and Embarcadero. Not really going to mess with Temple Bar.
Temple Bar is the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even billed as the same. This is not just us assuming. It is pressed exactly the same. We're going to go from that. And we might drag in a Scottish blend or two just to see.
Yeah.
It might not be perfect matching, but it doesn't seem like there's as much Oriental forward blends as, say, Scottish blends. So we might have to bridge. I do think, though, that there is a Oriental forward blend from, wow, I'm having a hard time thinking of the name of this. Number 8 Slices, and they're up in Boston.
LJ Peretti?
LJ Peretti. LJ Peretti has, I think, a Oriental forward blend called, I swear I think it's a major city in Uzbekistan. It's funny, I can't think of the city name, but I can think of
where it's from.
Ishtar or something like that. Anyway, so we'll probably look at that too if I can get my hands on it.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this review and hope you stick around for the next one.
Thank you so much for watching.